Logan Paul called Andrew Tate out. Let's get right into it. What's going on, and welcome to MetaMattTV. I am MetaMatt. If you're here from MetaMattTV TikTok and you already saw this video, then you can skip to this time. This is a quick overview of what's going on with Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and Andrew Tate. Logan and Jake Paul seem to be two of the only YouTubers who are not afraid of Andrew Tate.
Can I beat the shit out of Andrew fucking Tate?
100%.
Jake Paul stated, "I don't think he gets in the ring with one of us."
Come on, he's a top G.
Nah, I don't think he would fight us.
Come on.
I think it's too big of a risk for him. And
Why?
I mean, because he's alpha male, right?
Top
That's his
G.
whole entire thing. And when he loses, he will lose to one of us, either one of us that he fights. His whole shtick goes out the window.
Logan Paul doesn't think that Tate's relevancy will last long enough to make the fight worth it for the Paul brothers.
When I'm shopping the idea around to my advisors, they're concerned that he won't be as poppin' as he is right now or as relevant in December or January.
Jake then went on to rip into Tate's fanboys.
He runs with this whole thing like, what color is your Bugatti? It's not cool to tell kids that they need a Bugatti to be cool. My Bugatti that I have is in a Morgan Stanley bank account, compounding interest and hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's cooler than having a fucking Bugatti. And all these little fanboys, they're pissed off at girls because they've never gotten laid, and they think by being this alpha male and copying this douchebag who wears giant fucking aviators indoors, and they're watching him to try to get laid, but they're gonna get spit on and slapped by a girl. That's what's gonna happen.
Andrew Tate became relevant to mainstream media this year. He operates a webcam studio using girls as employees, which has brought controversy due to his misogynistic statements on the show. He also set up the controversial Hustlers University, where there are lessons about dropshipping and cryptocurrency. Members gain commission for recruiting others and are encouraged to post large numbers of videos of Tate all over social media. Tate hasn't seemed scared of the Paul brothers in the past.
Quickly address the chat because everyone keeps saying Tate versus Paul, blah, blah, blah. I saw he did a call out video, but he doesn't have a Bugatti. I offered to buy him one. I'm from a different world. Like all these YouTubers and stuff, they grew up in America, now they're YouTubers. Cool. I made my money on the streets. I'm living out here.
If Logan or Jake were to face off against Tate, who do you think would win?
Well, you know what's interesting about the whole thing with Andrew Tate is that he's slowly, I mean, obviously he's taken over the entire internet. Everyone's talking about this bald dude from Armenia and his views on stuff. Like he's very, very traditional. A lot of the people who are like YouTubers and creators who live in like Europe and other places other than basically everywhere but the US don't have a huge problem with him, honestly. They're like, that's, I mean, whatever, you know. And everyone in the Western side is like super pissed off about it. For me, I think there's a very underlying message there that's basically respect yourself more if you're a man and work harder and stop being a bitch. I think that's like his main core message, which I can agree with. Everything else is kind of just noise. Like everything else is for clips, and he's a master at that shit. He just says whatever he fucking wants. He doesn't have any attention to like apologies. He's got so much money, so he doesn't care. So it's one of those kind of characters, which isn't that uncommon. Like Logan and Jake referred to it in the video. They were like, look, someone like this comes along every few years. There's some kind of guru type person who comes in, starts selling courses and shit and all these things, right? And so it's funny because he's taken over the gym influencer world. All the gym fitness people are watching him because it's hilarious seeing them, because I still follow them. I used to be a fitness guy. And then it's slowly starting to infiltrate into every single other industry. All the influencers from all these other industries are starting to pick up little things. They're like, oh, have you seen Andrew Tate? He said this, he said that, just like we're doing right now. I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of his clips. I've seen videos where he kind of breaks character a little bit. I feel like he's like, I feel like he turns it up like 60% probably for the camera.
So you think it's like a shtick, or like just to sell some courses or sell this, that, whatever? He's actually a good guy, because I know a lot of the stuff in the news I've seen of him has been like him trashing women and just, you know, saying all this, all this stuff that, you know, people just don't like him. Like, you know, everyone on YouTube that I've seen, they're the fanboys who are like, oh yeah, you know, Andrew Tate, whatever. We're gonna get into this a little bit later. I kind of agree with Jake Paul in the sense that all the people who are sucking his dick are basically people who, like Jake Paul said, who aren't getting girls, who don't know better. Yeah. This guy who hires, you know, all these girls to, you know, go on a podcast with him, like, oh, he gets girls, so, you know, like whatever he says is his goal. But you're trying to say that he's actually means well. He's just using that douchebag.
Yeah, I think he's just really upscale. It's kind of like Logan Paul in 2017, just really, really ramping. I mean, it was still Logan Paul in 2017, but like, was it really Logan Paul? You know, like in the same way, it's just kind of over exaggerated. So I think in that sense, they kind of overlooked him. I think it's a very similar style. Like Logan Paul's actually a good person. He just fucked up a few times and did some dumb shit and got caught up in the noise. I think Andrew Tate means all the things he says. I just don't think he cares until someone brings it up, really. Like, I don't think he walks around thinking I hate women or objects. Like, I don't think he just thinks about that when he's just like walking around getting breakfast. I think it's just when someone asks him, like, what are your thoughts on like a traditional relationship, that's when he turns it on. He says what he says, and then people will stick onto that. And I agree. All the people who are sucking his dick are the people who are not getting laid. Like those are the people who follow him. But there are people who are very normal, like you and I, who would see certain messages he has underlying all the BS that comes out of his mouth and says, okay, I see what he's like. I see the real message here. And he said that too before. Like there are people who are winning who agree with like 75% of what Andrew Tate says. It's the 25% of bullshit details. It's kind of like the left media type deal where people are mad about. They're like, they're not saying the real story. They're just jumping for headlines and stuff. It's very similar. Like all the people who are covering Andrew Tate are just covering it with headlines. They're like, Andrew Tate said this. And then you go like the whole thing and yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit. But if you are a smart person and you actually take the message he's trying to say from there, it's usually boiled down to like one or two main core messages, and then everything else is just noise. You can kind of just forget about it. He's just a character in that sense. But I do think he means the things he says. I do think he turns it up for the camera.
That's interesting that you mentioned, Logan Paul and even Jake Paul. I know Jake when he first started off, with the content house and all that, he was a big old douchebag. Like he's still not the nicest guy ever, as
Yeah.
far as like the celebrities go and all that. But Logan Paul definitely has more good guy persona than Jake now in the media.
Yeah.
With the whole boxing, now he's in the WWE and doing some good stuff there. But like you said, Jake Paul and Logan Paul, they definitely had that heel persona that they amplified. And Jake even mentioned on a bunch of podcasts before how that like it's a persona. Like he's like that's not necessarily who I am, but you kind of have to do that to to sell tickets, or in this case your views and your comments and all that kind of stuff, the engagement.
So
and
you gotta remember he's on a podcast. He's on a show when he says these things. Like he's not, I mean, I'm sure he says this sometimes like on a dinner, but like if you go meet Andrew Tate in person, I'm sure he's not going to start yelling at you about women and stuff like that. Like he's probably a normal ass dude in that sense. But if you bring him onto a show where he knows it's going to get 4 million views no matter what I say, now he's like, all right, well, let's have some fun. Let's say some ridiculous banter and just say the most outlandish shit. But you've seen also his first like 10 podcasts that everyone started seeing when he was starting to blow up this past 6 months or so, they were like very extreme, very, very to the point where you're like, Jesus Christ, what is this guy on? And now probably in the last like 2 months or so, after he's kind of achieved God tier status, he started to pull back a little bit. You're starting to see him break character like once a podcast now. Like almost every podcast, he breaks character a little bit. He goes a little bit more into depth. People push back on him, especially when he says something like, there was something he said on what was it, the BFS podcast. He said that I think all the smartest people are men, and they're like, well, like the smartest person on earth is a woman. He was just like, okay, well, like, and then he like backtracked a little bit and like said some things and whatnot. And I don't know, man. I think he speaks from personal experience. Like when he talks about women, especially, he lives in a third world country, right? He lives in a third world country surrounded by webcam girls. Like, I'm not surprised that that's just thoughts on women. Like that's the kind of women he's like around, right? The people who he's just like traditional roles of man and husband, or like husband and wife and stuff like that. Like that's what he grows up around. That's what he's surrounded by. The girls he's around, I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Western culture is kind of like the only kind of, we're used to this kind of woman who's like out there trying to be the CEO and stuff like that. Like that's the vibe right now for women. And in the East, it's just not like that. And I think because of that, he's able to just say stuff and people in the US get triggered.
Yeah, well, I mean, but which the majority of his audience probably are, the ones they're talking about are definitely in the U.S. Maybe Tate should be telling people like, hey, like I live this way because I was, because I was this way, and if you do this, it might not work out for you because it's not a realistic way to live. So I just don't know if the good outweighs the bad, because I just, and like you said, the media does like portray certain things, but like it's hard to some of the things that he said. I've seen him say it's pretty long clips. It's hard to make him look out to be because it's just him talking. It's like I don't know, it's not out of context, or he just doesn't seem like such a good guy, and like it could be a persona, and like I love to see what he's like, like off camera and all that. Which, and I kind of hate the whole fact that he's like so different off camera, and like it's like that's a whole nother thing we can talk about, the respecting or whatever. But like I just don't know if I trust the guy, which kind of leads me to my next point: the Hustler University. Is this thing a scam? Is this legit? I've seen so many TikToks like, hey, I took this thing, like especially the cryptocurrency part of it, and I'm very much in the cryptocurrency world. We run a cryptocurrency education program. And some of the TikToks I've seen about this guy and his program is just, they give you some signals, and then they teach you things that, they give you all these blocks of text that you can, go and Google and see. And like, there's no like real, like, education or like sense of community when it comes to, the actual, cryptocurrency part of his stick, I guess, or his university. Have you heard about any of that, or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I think he's just like every other fucking like online course dude. I think he's just more rich, and I think he's just from the East. Like, I think that's the only like I think he's very much like all the other like the past 10 years. You've seen all the online course sellers, the people who are teaching you how to make money, and some of them have real businesses. I think Tate just has a fucking lot of money, and he's just the current guy who came in and is the. I mean, Jake and Logan talk about this, like the natural swing back of like ultra woke left. Like there's gonna be an ultra woke right, which is the total opposite, which is like the stern father figure from the fucking Middle East or whatever. Is like that's basically what it is. And so I think it depends on how much you watch him and how much autonomy you have within your own head. If you say if he says something and you just automatically just parrot it out after, and you have no thought about trying to come up to your own conclusions and think to yourself like, is this right? Like, is what he's saying kind of crappy, or is it good? Is there an underlying message I should be taking? And I think in that sense, most people are stupid, and that most of the people in his community who are like buying his stuff are fucking kids, or they're dumb, or that's the issue. Is like, I don't know if the good outweighs the bad. I think for individuals, you can only answer that question. Like, you as an individual could know if it's good for you or bad for you. I think there are certain messages that he's said over the past couple months that I've been watching him, trying to figure out who he is, that are helpful. Just kind of like do your shit, be a man kind of thing, because that's kind of like not a thing in this culture right now. It's basically do the total opposite, which I actually think there is a lot of merit there. So I've seen a lot of people cover it because I wanted to know if it was bullshit too. And it sounds like it's just a generic online course situation. So, I mean, you're going to get as much as you would out of any online course. It's going to have structured content. You're going to have a very structured plan of how to accomplish a goal, whatever your goal is to learn. But I don't think it's anything revolutionary at all, what he portrays it to be. People think it's going to be him teaching stuff, right? And
right. Answered my question exactly. To me, that's a scam. Because it's not all these guys, all these personalities, who don't have time to actually teach people. They make this program, which is basically the same cookie cutter courses, just like, do this, do that, here's, Investopedia for you or whatever. And then they're like, all right, and good luck, you're on your own. Cause like, we don't have time for you. It's not a real, university, because universities, you have teachers, you have people who are there for you. You have after school help if you need it. Like, there's a big difference between selling this thing as a university and just having it. It's a cookie cutter. Like all the big YouTubers have them. It's so for me, that's a scam. I mean, it's just 100%. Him putting his name on another bullshit program that's get rich quick kind of scheme.
And I think he believes it is the thing. Like, I think he does believe that it is the best thing ever. And it's funny, like I think Jake and Logan talked about some of the tactics. They have this thing where if you try and quit, they just like it's like badger you. They're like, you're lazy as fuck. Like, yeah, you're gonna quit, blah blah, and all these things. And it's pretty wild. But that's, I don't know, man.
Literally the obvious. Like, that's literally why we made our universe. Like, why we made PB University, because exactly that. Like when people are ready to quit, we're like, hey, we get it. Like, we've been there. It's fucking hard. Trading is hard, and to anyone who tries to tell them it's easy is fucking bullshitting. It's a scam. So anyway, we're not going off of trading though. I know he's a big kickboxer. That was his whole thing before. This, if you want to call it influencing or whatever he's doing now. I know he's still new to it. He's not he's not like a Logan or a Jake Paul, but he is big now, and people are talking, putting him on that same spectrum of the Jake Paul, Logan Pauls when it comes to different boxing events. All this YouTube influencer fighting, boxing. Jake Paul was saying that he doesn't think that Andrew Tate called them both out or whatever, but Jake Paul thinks that when it comes down to it, he won't actually accept a fight. That Tate is not necessarily afraid, but it's just not worth it for him. There's just too much risk if he loses, because his reputation is new and paper thin. It's based off of being a top G and being tough, and I'm the alpha. And if he gets his ass kicked by Jake Paul, some YouTuber who in theory has less fighting experience than him, there goes his whole persona. Logan Paul is also saying he went to his advisors, and his advisors basically told him like, hey, this might not be worth it for us to promote this whole fight, when in January or February of next year, this guy is going to be a nobody again, just like all these other flash in the pans. So do you think that there's any merit behind what they're saying, or do you think they're just talking trash?
Honestly, I didn't really think about the fact that Tate would go irrelevant until Logan brought it up in a random 2-second clip where he was like, if you think Andrew Tate will be around in 7 to 8 months, you are sadly mistaken. So because Logan Paul said that about him potentially going irrelevant, I was like, oh, that's actually really interesting. And he's so big right now that I didn't think he could go irrelevant in a few months. But then I realized he's already in the last month or so, he's not slowing down, but it's to the point where we've kind of heard everything he's got to say. We've heard his stance on everything. So it's kind of like he's just kind of, it's an echo room now. And now we're starting to see the derivatives of Andrew Tate. We're starting to see this Sneeko. This other, he's like an 18-year-old version of Andrew Tate. It's fucking the same thing. So it's fine. I mean, I don't know if it's real or not, but anyways, he's doing the same thing. We're going to start to see the exact same cycle So it was sad for me because it's like, oh, maybe this guy's like different. Maybe this guy is the one that he's gonna in a few months he's gonna come out and it's gonna be like really helpful and he's gonna stick around and he's gonna contribute things. And now I'm like, wait a minute, he might just be the next con artist style of character that has some good qualities, has some really shit qualities, and like that's about the story. And then in 9 months we won't have heard of him again. I think in the way he's blown up is very much like NFTs. Like, it's kind of has a lot of attention up early and then kind of slows down a little bit. I think people after 8 or 9 months, like, okay, this course may or may not be good. I don't know if it's good or not. I think right now it's good because everyone makes, I heard it's either 25 or 50% of the commission every time someone signs up using their link. So that's the way he's blowing up so fast. So I'm like, if that's maintains, yeah, it's exactly a pyramid scheme, except the difference is a pyramid scheme,
Cutco, right?
yeah, but the thing
those
is, like,
knives.
well, I've done a pyramid scheme before. I've been part of it. I was in the fitness industry, so I've not me. Like, I haven't done one.
Yeah,
I've
I was
been
like,
part of one.
that's not a
Yeah.
good thing to say. I have an NFT project also.
Yeah, I've been part of
I'll
it. And
cut
I was
that
like,
all out.
you get like you get like 10%. You get like 10% usually, but he's
Right.
giving like 30 to 50%. I heard, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I guess that is a pyramid scheme, but at the same time, that's way more than normal. I think it's because he's so rich. But now that I think this is his biggest mistake. This is why I thought that he probably will go irrelevant. He's doing fucking like merch now. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to be different, you got to like do it different. This guy is just not doing it different. He's just doing exactly what the other online course guru people did in the past. I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought he was so different because he's got these outlandish views. He's from the East, but he's literally just Twitch streaming all day now and fucking selling merch. I'm like, oh, this is just another dude. That's kind of sad. I was actually kind of disappointed.
I mean, like, not for nothing. Like, what about him makes him so special? Like, yeah, he's a kickboxer. Does that make him like a financial guru, a crypto guru? Like, not like maybe he can teach some kickboxing courses on YouTube, but like other than that, like he doesn't really have anything going like that. Like as far as like legitimate like things that he's done that like makes him, you know, someone who should legitimately be, you know, like listened to for more than 6 months or whatever, you know, and take it for some sound bites or whatever. And like, you know, maybe he will do some big stuff and then, you know, prove himself and, you know, more than just like some ex kickboxer. But like, like for instance, like Jake Paul and Logan Paul, you know, they are, you know, they were YouTubers and now, you know, now they're doing the boxing. Now they're doing companies. You know, Logan has Prime and Jake Paul has that new company, Better. Have you heard about that one?
I have.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. So I watched that whole like his whole thing on YouTube. The Jake Paul's on his YouTube, the advertisement for it or whatever you want to call it, and it looks pretty fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, Jake and Logan are crushing it. They're in their primes right now. Andrew Tate blew up after all his primes, right? He had his webcam company that got him millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, which, you know, as a business structure, like I'm sure that was good. Like he did figure out how to sell it. Like he was, you know, playing these fucking old fat guys, taking all their money basically. So in that sense, like he took all their money, he did a good business or whatever in that sense. But he's got all the money from there, and so he has the experience of like a businessman. So he understands like business stuff. Like when Jake and Logan talk about his fighting experience, like, oh, he's not that good at fighting. I don't know, because in boxing sense it might be a bit different, but you literally can't take away the fact that he was a world champion. Like you can't just get to world champion, like kind of like you have to be the absolute best in the entire world. So like he was a really good fighter, but his kickboxing is a little bit different.
So is Tyron Woodley, so is Ben Askren.
True.
They were the best
Very
in
true.
their sport too. And then look what happened with Jake Paul. And this is back before he even had all the experience. So like,
yeah, and that's the other thing too. Andrew Tate called him out like 2 years ago. I thought the call out was recent. He called Jake Paul out like literally 2 years ago. I don't think he would fight him now. I really don't. I think he would fight maybe Logan. I don't think he wants to though. I saw a clip where he was like, I'm gonna buy him a Bugatti. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I think Andrew Tate's not. I think he is hard when he needs to be. I think he's stern when he needs to be, like a man is supposed to be, right? But I don't think that he actually cares like that. Like if Logan was like, let's actually fight, fuck you, Andrew Tate's gonna be like, dog, I don't fucking care, bro. Like I'm 35 years old, I'm rich as fuck, I don't care. I'm not actually mad at you. So I'm just saying shit on the internet. Like I don't care, right? And I think Logan's in the same, but he doesn't give a shit either. But he's in the beginning of his prime, right? And so they're all doing this crazy shit now. It's building and building, building. Andrew Tate's already done all that stuff. So, but the Better company is cool. I think Jake's biggest downfall that KSI brings up all the time is that Jake Paul doesn't respect where he came from. He doesn't make YouTube videos. The only time you see Jake Paul, which is funny that Logan said it on the podcast, he says, all right, Jake Paul's here, my brother, the guy who shows up every time he has to promote something. And I was like, fuck, dude, that's literally how he treats his YouTube. He doesn't show up on his YouTube except to promote stuff. That's not gonna end well. That's why Logan Paul's not doing too much either, but he does do his podcast, so it's a bit different. But I think if you leave your core audience, which is Jake's is his YouTube, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe all his fans hate him because his original fans were all vlog watchers, so maybe they don't like him. I'm not sure.
But I mean, you're a YouTuber, and we both know how much work it takes to do to be a YouTuber and do all this stuff, and
Yeah.
so like for Jay, like being a full-time boxer, like that, like there is a mentality to get into, and so I get to his point, he said, I know he said in the past, I know Logan said this before when he was like fighting Mayweather, and all his big fights, like he didn't make content during because like it's hard to go from boxer mentality to like goofy YouTuber mentality and back and forth, and
Sure.
he doesn't want to lose the fights, and I think that for now, like the money for Jake is definitely in this whole boxing thing. I think that he's on. I know that Logan's the one who fought Mayweather, but I think that Jake is still the bigger.
I don't know.
draw.
Yeah, Jake Paul is way fucking better. I don't know. Honestly, I don't actually know. Every time I've seen Jake Paul fight, it's not been that impressive. At least
No.
from like when you're watching, you're like, wow, this guy's like not actually that good. Like he sold this fight really well. He does
Right.
knock him. I mean, he did knock him out. It's like that was the big highlight. But it's like the rest of the fight was just like, I was just yawning the whole time. I was like, God
Right.
damn. Same with
Logan's
Logan.
work-
Like they weren't
yeah.
very particularly good. Like when I was watching I mean, that was Floyd Mayweather. It's a way different story.
Right.
But like I remember the first Logan Paul KSI fight. That shit was good. They're both fighting. It looked like it was entertaining to watch. The second Logan Paul fight wasn't very good. I was kind of bored. It just wasn't anything really, and I was kind of like super disappointed, honestly, with how it went. And that's kind of been the story with Jake Paul's boxing fights. I mean, if he didn't get the knockouts, it would not be having all this attention. So fair play to all the knockouts he's had. But he must be really racking in that dough. I saw Dana White saying that Jake Paul's event with Raheem, whatever his name, got canceled because they couldn't sell out the stadium. And I was like, I don't know if that's true. Like, and everyone says he's inflating the numbers. People aren't buying the fight. I'm like, motherfucker, I think people are buying the fight. I think there are a lot of people who are watching.
You think that one? I didn't even know who the other guy was, to be honest with you. Tyron.
Well, I don't know who the other guy is either.
Yeah,
but
they hyped up the other ones really well. I feel like this one for Madison Square Garden just wasn't hyped up enough. But and like the hype and all that. Like Jake's so good at, and Logan too. They're so good at selling these shows and like creating this narrative, which is why I think it's so brilliant that Logan went to the WWE, because I think that's where they both belong as far as
it's true.
fighting or any type of sports combat goes. Because that's what they do best, is entertain. They're entertainers.
Yeah.
Logan Paul announced that he has signed with the WWE earlier this month to his 23 million Instagram followers with a picture of himself with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Vince McMahon just announced his retirement a week ago, making Stephanie McMahon co-CEO and Triple H the new head of creative. The first thing that Triple H did was turn WWE from PG to TV-14 and open his first show with Logan Paul and his rival The Miz brawling in the ring. Logan Paul boxed fellow YouTube star KSI in the past, as well as the undefeated Floyd Mayweather. Do you think that Logan Paul is a good fit in the WWE? And so I'm curious to see.
But Jake has a fucking fire, dude. He is pissed. He's like he truly has that dog. Like I can tap into it sometimes, but I don't have like I don't have it to that level. Like some people who, like, if you go to the Navy SEALs, right? Like most of them have something fucked up inside of them that makes them able to tap into it very often to make them survive all that shit. And I think Jake Paul just has a lot of anger toward the world, and Logan just doesn't have that. That's why Logan left. He's like, look, I'll fight sometimes, but I don't care. Jake Paul's like, I fucking want to hurt you. I want to rip your head off. Like that's what Jake Paul thinks, and that's why I think he can make it work. I think Jake Paul maybe can sell some fights. I think this maybe just this last one, it was $60 pay-per-view. It wasn't someone people knew. I think that's where he went wrong. I think this fight was for his credibility. It was going to be like, okay, he fought a real boxer, whatever. But maybe he didn't sell as many tickets. But also, bro, like if he even made close to as much money as he's been saying he is, which is like $40 million, then it is not a question of money. Like people don't realize how much these sponsors bring in. I've talked to some people, like one of my friends is the brand partnerships for a big company. And I was like, tell me some of the numbers that I can expect in YouTube, especially in the financial arena. He goes, well, he's like, we won't even talk about celebrities. He goes, we'll talk about just YouTuber people. You can expect like a $60,000 deal for like 2 or 3 months for like a podcast show, for like getting some views. And I was like, 60, what? I was like, $60,000 for 3 months. He's like, you don't realize how much money, because that's fucking pennies to these other companies. He goes, when you're talking about celebrities doing shit like this, they're getting like $600,000 at a time type of deal. Just
Kim
like having
Kardashian was Kim Kardashian was making a comment how she had to turn down a million post because it was going against
Yeah,
like
man.
Yeezy's brand or what. It's crazy what these celebrities are.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
money.
I know you're talking about Jake. You know how Jake's fights are getting kind of boring, this, that, whatever. Do you think that the KSI versus Jake Paul one, A, is
Oh
going
my
to
God.
happen next year, or B? I mean, this is like straight up KSI. I'm not. I respected what he did. Like he legit was just like, hey, like, we're fighting or what? Like he laid out the challenge on Twitter. Jake said, yeah, sure, if you say I'm better right now, and he's like, sure,
Yeah.
you're better right now. Let's go. So now Jake doesn't have an excuse. Like I think he has to do it now.
I think Jake wants to. I think KSI. I think everyone was dogging KSI. They're like, you could have fought Jake Paul this time. Like he could have replaced.
After years of back and forth, Jake Paul versus KSI will be happening next year. This morning, KSI tweeted Jake Paul saying, Wembley Stadium, we fight next year. Will you accept? Jake Paul responded, I accept, but one condition. You have to reply and admit that as of today, when it comes to boxing, I am better. To which KSI retorted, as of today in boxing, you're better. Let's run it. Wembley Stadium is in England, so KSI will have hometown advantage. However, KSI hasn't boxed since 2019 and has been focusing on his rap career since then, instead of his physical conditioning, which photos of his body transformation this year make apparent. However, Jake Paul has stayed in his physical prime since 2019, having had 5 professional boxing matches since then, against opponents such as former UFC fighters Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley. KSI's original archenemy was Jake's brother Logan Paul. However, Logan and KSI have recently joined forces to create the energy drink brand Prime, which might make the Jake Paul versus KSI fight awkward for Logan, as it's his brother against his business partner, both of whom seem to despise each other. Who do you think will win?
Alex Wasabi, and I was like, bro, KSI has been saying for the past 6 months, this is a dust-off fight. Like, I need to get back in the ring for a fight before I fight someone like Jake Paul. He's like, I've been out for 3 years. So I don't think KSI had any intention of fighting Jake Paul soon. That's what he wasn't. You can't just jump into a fight with Alex Wasabi and then just switch over to fighting Jake Paul. Like, that's not the same fight at all. So I think I want to see if KSI is any good. So like this fight, I'm not even going to watch it. I'm not even going to pay for it. I'm going to watch it after.
Yeah.
But I don't know who this other dude is. So I want to see like
It's his
what
friend.
KSI looks like. Yeah, I heard, that's what I heard. But then I also heard that it's just someone that he's just done business with a couple times. So
like
who knows if
Brandon's
that's actually a
and
friend.
Deals with like
Yeah.
rare deals.
So I want to see how he fights. I want to see if it looks any good, like if he actually looks any better. If he does, I mean, the narrative of the fact that they hate each other so much, and the fact that Logan Paul's new business partner is KSI, and it's not even just like a business. Prime Energy is literally like gonna be a huge company. It's fucking good. The product is amazing. It's in Target. It's fucking in the Target right by my apartment. Like you can buy it at the store. It's a legitimate product, and it's really, really good. And KSI is like business partners with Logan, and now Jake is gonna fight him. And I want to see that fight happen. I think it will happen. I would be very surprised because KSI. Here's the best part about Jake Paul and KSI and Logan Paul. All these people who are doers. That's just why I respect anyone who's a doer. Is because they will actually follow through with their fucking word. I know you understand this with people who just say things, they never show up, they never come up and like do their part, and it's so fucking lame. It's so annoying. This has literally been the battle of my whole life. This is why I wanted to build my own brand, my own everything, so I could be there to oversee. Because no one ever gets shit done, dude. They just say a bunch of stuff and then never pull through, and it's so annoying. What I understand about KSI and Jake Paul is they are both doers. They will show up to the day that they're supposed to show up. If they sign the dotted line, they're going to show up. Jake Paul has not pulled out any of the fights. All of these fucking, like, I feel like every opponent has only pulled out of Jake Paul's fights. Like, it's just really annoying seeing that. But Jake Paul's not going to pull out of a fight unless he literally breaks his arm. Like, there's no situation where he doesn't do it. And now that they've like made it official like that, I think it will happen. And I'm fucking excited. If it happens in 2023, it's probably going to be in just about a year from now.
Yeah, and I think that you're right though. KSI needs some warm up fights. I don't know if you saw some pictures of him. He had this whole weight transformation. He was fat back in January of this year, whereas Jake Paul was like fighting UFC fighters. So like they definitely these past 3 years since the 2019 fight with Logan Paul, the two Jake's been fighting UFC fighters and KSI has been eating hamburgers and doing his rap deals and been very highly successful. Like you were saying, with these brands, Prime, like KSI and Logan, I think it is going to be huge. All these YouTubers, I thought it was like a joke at first, like Beast Burger and Prime and now Better, but like they're all doing really well. Jake Paul is TikTokifying sports betting. The YouTuber gone boxer announced the launch of his sports betting based company Better. The app will offer real money micro betting and develop digital content around it. Micro betting is betting on individual moments as opposed to games. For example, instead of betting that one baseball team will beat the other, you can bet on which type of pitch will be thrown next. Paul said of micro betting, it made the whole entire game fun, betting on every single play versus just waiting 4 hours for the match outcome. He is launching the first Better Media franchise, BS with Jake Paul, where he'll be discussing sports and betting with athletes and celebrity guests. Do you think that Jake Paul's company Better will be a success?
You'll do it. You'll make it work. Like Max Tuning is a fitness YouTuber. He started Sour Strips, a candy company within a fitness industry. It was just supposed to be good candy. And I was like, man, this is gonna be disgusting. So I bought some because I like Max. He's a YouTuber. Bought it and I was like, oh fuck, this is really good. And then I was like, wait, this is fucking better than any candy I've ever eaten in my entire life, actually. And I was like, that's weird. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe that was a fluke. Like, maybe that was just me. And then like 6 months later, he's in Walmart, he's in Target, he's in every single gas station in the country. And I was like, okay, so if you're a real if you're a real G, then you can actually make it work. And
Oh yeah.
in a sense, it would be crazy. But man, I don't know. I think KSI has a different, like he says all the time, he's like, I'm a dog. Like he's like, you don't understand like my work ethic. And he's probably one of the only people on YouTube other than maybe a Jake and Logan that I'm like, yeah, I believe that, dude. Like
Yeah.
if KSI wants to get something done, he'll fucking make it done. The fact that he's selling out huge fucking stadiums and arenas and he's a YouTuber and he's got every single video he posts gets like 3 million views. I'm like, bro, this motherfucker understands it and he will do like nothing will stop this dude. So I think the fight will happen. And I think if Jake Paul fights KSI, I don't even know if I have a prediction for that. I feel like we gotta wait till we can see more of KSI because I haven't seen him fight in 3 years.
Out of the four of them goes KSI, Logan, Tate, and actually, and then Jake. So both Paul brothers. Who do you think is the best boxer, the best fighter?
Oh my god. I feel like Jake Paul has to be ASI just because he's fought so many fights in the last year. I think I would probably put Tate next, and then I don't know. Fuck, I guess KSI because he beat Logan, and then Logan. I don't think Logan's very good. I think I want Logan to be good. He's just not very good.
Where can viewers find you on YouTube and all your other content?
It's just Cade Bergman. You can see my I don't know if my name will be on the screen, but it's just my name everywhere. You can just type that in. You can type that in. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. Barely on LinkedIn. Fucking like that. I just cannot get all the way in on LinkedIn, dude.
I hate LinkedIn.
I hate it so
I hate
much.
it. I hate it. Oh well. I hated TikTok at first too, so who knows?
Yeah, sure. Well, anyways, let me thanks for having me on the show, dude. This
Yeah,
is fun.
appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure to check out MetaMattTV on TikTok. I'll actually be going over some of the best comments on that TikTok channel here on the MetaMattTV YouTube. And that TikTok, we go over all things trending, be it politics, celebrity drama, tech, science, whatever it may be. If it's trending, we'll talk about it. I hope to see you there, but until then, I hope that you all make some bread.